Greeting fellow Clark Countyans, Mississippians, and Americans. Listen, 2020 has been a year bearing gifts of uncertainties, devastation, a crashing economy, a growing pandemic that's affecting the livelihood and overall welfare of millions across this country and abroad in unprecedented ways. Simply put, life is no longer as we knew it. And amid this catastrophic disaster, another presidential election is on the horizon, and to other political offices that impact local and state government, the overall welfare and state of this country. During this time, many are grappling with, how they're going to pay their bills, feed their families, cope with the loss of family and friends as a result of the coronavirus, or even dealing with the fears and or the aftermath of they themselves contracting the virus. There's been so much to process. But even in the midst of this tragedy, we must be triumphant. Listen, we can be triumphant, and I know we will be triumphant. And in order for us to be victorious, right some wrongs and make some things better, or make better decisions for the least of these and the working class citizens, we must challenge ourselves to consider the voice of our vote, our need to vote, our right to vote, and most importantly, the significance and power within our vote. My grandmother, the late Mrs. Susan May Parker Barty, would say, "We're living in perilous times," and that statement is ever so true today. Although nothing is new under the sun, the good, the bad, and the ugly of these Ecclesiastes moments were set aside for such a time as this. The writing is on the wall, and it will behoove us to wake up and simply pay attention. As a former political candidate, I was able to see and hear the concerns of the constituents while on the campaign trail. Many felt that their vote didn't matter, their voice wouldn't be heard, or things would never change. But let me serve you notice. Never, and I repeat, never allow anyone to make you feel that your voice or your vote does not matter, because it does. If things are to change, no matter the opposition, roadblocks, or even the naysayers, you must and we must make our voice heard and our vote count. Listen, the very fabric of democracy has been tattered and torn by, giving way to unlawful permission of acceptances or acceptance of injustices, inequalities, racial rhetoric and behaviors, dishonesty, and inhumane practices. And for far too many of us, we know the lyrics to that song all too well. The lives and well-beings of millions across the state, the communities in this country as a whole are at stake, and the struggle is real for most, blacks, whites, Hispanics, and those alike. As citizens, we not only have a moral obligation, but we have a civic duty to make our voices heard for the betterment of mankind. And in November, every registered voter will have that opportunity. Don't let it pass you by. Listen, Frederick Douglass stated that the rights of a man rest in 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. Of the 3 boxes, there is 1 box, and 1 box alone, that affects the rights, liberties, and freedoms. The other 2 boxes. Remember, it's your choice. Whatever your choice, know that it affects the here and now and the future to come. When you vote in November, understand that economic welfare and development, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. The reform of healthcare disparities and affordability, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. Education reform, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. Criminal justice reform and the prosecution of corrupt police officers and the destruction or the reformation of corrupt police departments, or the lack thereof, listen, that's going to be represented on the ballot at the box. The appointment of fair and just state and federal Supreme Court justices, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. The safeguard of the rule of law, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. Are you hear me? The willful regard for human life, or the lack thereof, will be represented on the ballot at the box. And social justice, race relations, and equal protection under the law or the lack thereof will be represented on the ballot at the box. The security of voting rights or the threat to them will be represented on the ballot at the box. Listen, it truly pays to pay attention, be informed, be engaged, and involved in the political process. For you see, our power is in our vote, and we must not allow our vote to be taken for granted by others. But most importantly, we should not allow our votes to be taken for granted by us. And how do we do that? By not voting, or believing that our votes hold no weight, or believing that things will never change, and not even grooming or vetting qualified candidates who speak to the specific needs and interests of the masses to run for local, state, and federal office. As I come to a close, Alice Walker said, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. If we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and we are truly concerned about the overall welfare of the citizens and the future thereof, understand that we the people have the power, and therefore we must vote as though the social security of our lives depend on it, because it does. It could literally be a matter of life or death. So I admonish you, dig deep into your moral compass and vote this coming November against the injustices that have not only plagued our country, but our state and our communities, and vote for the betterment of a greater America with true liberty and justice for all. We must not continue to point the fingers at others when we ourselves have not fulfilled our obligation to cast our vote to make a difference. We cannot give up. We cannot give up now, because God Almighty has brought us too far from where we started. Therefore, if there is to be change, although it may not come easy, there can be change. But we must invoke that change together. And at that point, it can't be truthfully said that we didn't act. Therefore, we must be intentional, we must be purposeful, and we must vote. Until next time, I'm Dr. Yvette Barty. Thank you, and God bless.